Let's go with Brandon in Arizona. Brandon, you're talking to Eric and Jamie.
Eric.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. And yourself?
I'm doing well. What did you like to talk about today?
So, yeah, I talked to you last week. I wanted to find out if you'd watched that documentary of Dave Hunt's and see if you were going to burn my ears or not.
Well, so I actually only just barely started it. So I had a whole lot come up. I got the opportunity to pick up a bunch of extra hours at work. So I'm going to be dead honest with you and say I did not get the chance to watch it. But I will. I absolutely will. I'm sorry, man. I committed to you that I would, and I still will. I just didn't get to it.
I'm hoping that you watch that just because, I mean, I'd like to help you put that whole Harry Potter prophecy argument on the shelf because,
I'd absolutely like that because when you talk about fulfilled prophecy, right, if it's all contained within the same book, then it really doesn't hold water. And, appealing to big numbers, I mean, what are the odds that you were born? 1, right? If a different sperm got to the egg, then we'd be talking about the odds of that person being born. Oh my gosh, my hair's all over the place. Anyway.
I mean, I would encourage, your listeners and everybody to actually examine for themselves, because you can research when Artaxerxes actually made the decree to rebuild Jerusalem, and then also, the celebration of Palm Sunday, its origins are because of the day that the triumphant day that Jesus rode into the gates of Jerusalem. So these are, outside of the Bible occasions that prove that this event actually took place.
So they certainly prove that if there's a well-documented history of the celebration of Palm Sunday, that's demonstrable. So what I will say is what we're talking about is evidence and sources. I don't know whether you're on Reddit, and it's not just that it's a good source for this, but if you post a place or instructions where that can be watched and you have a discussion there, I certainly would like to jump in on that as well as addressing the main points in calls. So.
Well, and one other thing that I'd like to introduce to you that I consider great evidence to prove that the Bible is actually inspired by God is if you look at the structure of the tabernacle that Moses would construct in the desert during their wandering for 40 years.
Wait, hold on. Did you see the construction of the tabernacle, or is that something you read in the book?
Well, I'm saying if you take the description of it from the book, you were to actually...
Okay, so taking the description, again, dude, you need to substantiate it. Otherwise, it belongs right there with the Harry Potter thing.
I agree. Now, hold on. Let me just finish. As far as I'm saying, if you were to build a little model of the description from the Bible and you look at it, it is actually a square, precise model of the human cell. And where the Holy of Holies.
Oh, come on.
Now,
really?
Hold on. I'm telling you the truth.
You're telling me stuff that is post hoc rationalizations. Do you understand what post hoc means?
I do.
Okay, and how is that anything but a post hoc rationalization of something that is absolutely unsubstantiated? And to be honest, you deserve better than that, Brandon. Come on. You can do better than that.
There's no way that Moses...
Yes, there's a fucking way. Hey, have a circle and a circle. Congratulations.
I'm saying there's no way that Moses would have known anything about DNA or...
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I agree. And he didn't try. You're reading shit into it. Substantiate it before you make the claim. Otherwise, it's just a claim. Watch, I can do this to you. Right? I can do this easily, right? I can make the claim. I had breakfast this morning. The proof is not me telling you more about breakfast. It's me taking you and showing you the pan, the food, the dirty plate, all of that stuff. Me being able to prove to you in all of these tangible ways that contribute to whether or not that happened. And right now, what you're doing is you're going, here's a claim. Right? This claim is that this God exists. But I don't just think this God exists. I think this God exists that's described in the Bible. Right? Okay, so That Bible has a whole lot of claims about God. I'm going to say that all of those are true. And on top of that, I mean, you're scaffolding more and more claims on without having substantiated any of them. So why take any of it seriously until you can do so? Start with the God existing. Start with that, and then we can go to whether or not it's a good God or an asshole or anything. But just start with it existing in the first place, please.
Sure. I mean, that's Jesus claimed that he was God.
Don't give a fuck about Jesus. Try again.
Well, I hope you would. I mean,
no, I don't. No. Hold on. No. Give me a reason to open the Bible before you can use it as evidence, because it does not deserve to be opened until you can substantiate it, Brandon.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that Jesus is a myth, or was he a real person?
I said that you need to be able to substantiate why we open the Bible, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Jesus said that, I mean, if Jesus was telling the truth about who he claimed...
How do you know?
If Jesus was telling the truth, then he would tell the truth. It's a tautology.
Let me put an emphasis on your last sentence. I'd like to put an emphasis on the word if.
Sure.
If Jesus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. And how can we determine whether that if is true or likely true?
Because there's more evidence for him. The only person with more evidence in the first century is Josephus, is the only other figure in the first century.
So,
absolutely incorrect. Absolutely incorrect. Flavius Josephus kept manuscripts, dozens and dozens of records, to the point where I believe Josephus wrote about the way you replace your sandals. At which point, those records are backed up by numerous other records by officiates in Roman hierarchy.
Yeah.
Right? All of those things independent from each other and concurrent at the, they're contemporaries. They're at the exact same time. And yet you find that claims about Jesus only happen after the myth starts to spread. And so, no, they are not, they're not commensurate. They are not equal.
Bart Ehrman wrote a whole book on Did Jesus Exist? And you should read it.
Okay. Did Bart Ehrman come to the conclusion that you have? And I'm going to go ahead and give this as just a tip.
Yeah,
in general, when arguing comparative absolutes, like this is the most X, invite a lot of things that probably don't involve your point, because now we can talk about anything that is historicity of the first century at all. Does that make sense? Like when you say he's the most documented, etc. So
the best
two things.
wall.
One, you're now talking about comparing him to other records. And two, that doesn't tell me how good the records are. If there were literally no records of anyone else from the first century and one page that said, I saw Jesus, period, signed some dude that lives in the desert, he would have the most evidence for his existence in the first century. But it wouldn't tell me anything about whether or not there was sufficient evidence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm just saying, as far as Bart Ehrman, if you guys have probably watched the debate that Matt Dillahunty hosted between Bart Ehrman and Bob Price, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the mythicism debate?
Yeah.
I'm not arguing about whether or not a guy named Jesus existed in the first century.
Yeah.
Because that's a name. And I really don't think you care about whether or not a dude named Jesus or Yeshua existed.
I was going to say, yeah.
We're not talking about that. We're talking.
Nazareth is a very important figure because, again, if he was
I agree. In the
claimed,
future, you have the spread of an entire religion. So I would agree that the story of that figure is actually incredibly important. But that doesn't mean that character was the Son of God who lived a blameless life, who was killed brutally on Golgotha, right at Golgotha, and then 3 days later rose again bodily and appeared to 500.
Well,
that is a massive fucking claim.
If that actually occurred,
if that
actually happened,
yes,
then wouldn't you agree that's pretty strong evidence that he is who he claimed?
No, that would mean that so if that happened, that would be evidence of somebody rising bodily from the grave. And then, honestly, the most likely explanation is that they were incorrectly claimed to be dead. Right? That right isn't that right? The most likely explanation for somebody rising from the dead is that they weren't dead in the first place.
Yeah.
But it was previously prophesied.
No. Hold on, Brandon. That's the same song and dance. You know where we're going to go with it. It's old. It's tired. Find something else, because the prophecy is not going to work. It doesn't hold any water with us, and we told you why. So why else?
I don't know of anybody else that rised from the dead.
I don't either.
After being stuck in the side with a spear to confirm that he was dead.
Dude.
So it wasn't just a misdiagnosis.
Okay, no, but again, Harry Potter was murdered and then rose from the dead using one of the help me.
Oh, it was the Voldemort's Horcrux is what was destroyed. When
but it was the Stone of Resurrection. It was part of the Deathly Hallows.
Bible prophecy.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, he died and he came back.
Real world events.
No, okay, you need to tie that to the real world.
Hey, Harry Potter is related to real world events. There's an entire theme park.
And true enough.
Yeah. I mean, there's a theme park for Jesus stuff as well.
And London is mentioned in the books.
That's true, and London exists.
Yeah.
Well, the prophecies of Israel becoming a nation again was prophesied, and then
okay, we talked about that last week.
Real quick,
if you would like to know our answer to that, please refer back to last week's video.
Sure, but let me give you a
Sorry,
prophecy
Jamie,
that hasn't occurred yet. The next little thing on the list of prophecy is about Damascus being destroyed and the entire world turning on Israel and making them the criminals for literally defending themselves. That's next on the prophecy list. So, when that happens, maybe then your listeners will take the Bible more seriously.
So maybe you should substantiate literally anything in it before we do. So, when you have a good prediction, when you have a good prophecy, right, it should be specific. Tell me when. Tell me where. Tell me who.
How can I get more specific?
Easy. Give me a date, Brandon. What day?
This is where it's a complicated issue. We don't have enough time on this call to go over the exact day when Artaxerxes made the decree to rebuild Jerusalem, and then precisely 173,800
I'm sorry.
days later.
Look at this.
Just real big numbers. Just real quick, Brandon. Is it too complicated for God to understand?
No.
Are the prophecies that you're referring to of God?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be possible for God to put very, very, very specific details in his prophecy? For example, Israel, after becoming a nation, will be invaded by 7 other nations on Yom Kippur, would be, I'm pretty sure it was 7, a very specific prophecy that would then also be true.
Well, it says that there's going to be many nations that come against them, and God's going to protect them. So,
but would it be a more impressive prophecy if the date, and even without the year, if the date and a reference to the Jewish holy day was specific, and if it's specified the number of nations?
Well, that would have been great.
Okay,
but I'm
so
just saying,
if there's a God that's all-powerful, that wants people to believe in him, because there are prophecies, why wouldn't he use the best prophecies?
But you guys are just denying the Daniel chapter 9 prophecy.
I'm asking you a very, very, very specific question about why God would do what you're saying he did.
Well, if you just even look at the Yom Kippur war, there is no way that they should have won that war. They should not even exist.
I think you're responding to his question to you by trying to give something else. I would actually really appreciate if you responded to Jamie's question.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't give us a prophecy about the Yom Kippur war. So, what can I
Well, but
say?
you're referring to everyone will turn against the state of Israel or whatever, right?
Yeah,
like as a prophecy. If it's specified, so God is the mightiest God and the only God, etc. Presumably, right? I'm pretty sure I remember those details from last week, and I'm somewhat assuming. Correct me if I say something that you don't believe about a God, except for when I say I don't think there's reason to, believe, because that's where we are. So if God was really all-powerful and the most mighty, why wouldn't he use the mightiest tools to accomplish his goal?
Well, I mean, you're going to see a lot of that come to pass. I'm just saying that,
But I've already seen it not.
You've seen what not?
I've seen references to prophecies in Daniel that talk about Israel, right, in the modern nation-state Westphalian sense of the state of Israel rather than the people of Israel. Right. Why doesn't it? Why am I unimpressed with the prophecies of God when God could so easily, if he exists, impress me? That would speak to me more than anything else. I'm like a political junkie. If he threw that in there, depending on what else he revealed about his person, he might persuade me to do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Well, I mean, he did prophesy that, Jerusalem would become a burden stone to all nations, and our United Nations spends over 1/3 of its time deliberating about the nation of Israel, this little fraction of nothing.
So, Brandon, that's still post hoc.
Yeah. It's uncritical post hoc. It's, okay, well, what would we expect from a God that wanted to impress and impart information on his people with a prophecy through his prophets? Wouldn't we expect the mightiest, most undeniable prophecies unlike any other in all of the history of humanity, with a level of specificity that was just mind-blowing, right? To the hour of the day, specific troop movements could be this prophecy, but it's not there.
Well, Daniel chapter 9 is the most specific you can get.
It's as specific as you can. Okay, if Daniel chapter 9, no, real quick, if Daniel chapter 9 had the day that the nations are going to turn against Israel, would that be more specific if it had the day?
This is where you're off, Jamie. In Daniel chapter 9, it says basically in 483 days years from the day that the decree is made to rebuild Jerusalem, that day the Messiah is going to come through the gates of Jerusalem.
And in the book it says Jesus comes.
Originated.
Right.
From.
And you say that day is the day that Jesus walked in, right?
Precisely.
Prove it.
173,880
Brandon, prove it.
days later.
Okay, let me give you. Okay, here's how I'm going to claim this. You ready, Brandon? On that day, I walked through the gates. I was there, and I am the Messiah. Can you prove to me with any degree of specificity, of any way that you can actually show one is different from the other?
Sure, I can prove the day that you were born and prove that you weren't there.
Oh, so you actually have more proof of me than Jesus?
Well, I mean, there's a whole lot of denying Jesus, which in my opinion...
No, this is not a denial of Jesus. Brandon, hold on. We're not... So denial of Jesus when I was a Christian meant that you had this idea of the Christ figure and that you were actively and willfully denying something that you knew. That is not the case here. If that's not what you're communicating, I'm sorry, but that's what it communicates to me as an ex-Christian. We are not denying that there's a story. What we're saying is there is no damn good reason to accept it as true. And the only thing that you've given so far is more, here's another thing that happened, here's another thing that happened, here's another thing that happened. You actually haven't backed up any of them. It's just more claims that you're stacking on. Back it up.
Well, there's a big problem with proving the exact date that Artaxerxes made the decree.
No, Brandon, hold on, no. Back up your claim instead of trying to push it off to something else. Do it. I challenge you.
Okay, Palm Sunday exists because that's...
Palm Sunday exists because we can prove Palm Sunday. Jamie's absolutely right. Back up your claim that Jesus walked into the gates that day. Back it up. Tell me with a degree of certainty different than one of us had have done it. And then even if you could, Brandon, how do you rule out the fact that might be a time traveler? Because time travel definitely sounds a whole lot easier than omnipotent, omnipresent, omnibenevolent God figure. How did you rule out time travel? How did you rule out all of that? How did you rule out the very, very possible fact that it was just written down, because that is far more likely?
So you're telling me time travel is more probable than prophecy being fulfilled?
No, time travel is more probable than your God because I have less claims. It's one claim. I'm not saying that time travel created the universe. Yes, time travel is more probable.
Okay, so I mean, if Damascus
No,
destroyed,
stop. No, I'm not letting you move forward. I'm pinning you down on walking into the gates. You don't get to, this is not bouncing around because, no. Prove it.
Okay, so Palm Sunday, though.
Yes, what about Palm Sunday existing?
Never even started unless the event took place.
Do you know how many celebrations other religions have about other things that you don't believe? Do you believe all of the other high holidays and religious holy days that other religions observe? Do you accept all of those as true because they happen? Let me tell you something. Valentine's Day.
One of them have a reason for beginning.
Right? Yeah, Mother's Day. How did Mother's Day begin?
Because somebody decided that we ought to celebrate our mothers and give them due honor.
There we go. Yep. And in the same way, somebody said, let's create a holiday. And then they tacked it on. Odds are, if you look at the history of the way holidays are added to Christian traditions, it's by bringing on other cultures and by saying we're going to co-opt that. That's how we wound up with Christmas. That's how we wound up with Easter.
The triumphant entry of the Messiah.
The triumphant entry of your character in your book needs to be substantiated before we can move any further. When you have some evidence of that, give us a call back. Jamie, is there anything else you want to talk to him about?
Well, I mean, the only place I would go from here would be getting into the specific details that the Bible says about the return of the Messiah and how it's contradictory, but that's a different call.
Yeah, I really don't want to open the book. He's got to substantiate why we should open the book.
I'm good.
Brandon, that got me fired up.
I'm just trying to help you actually see that the Bible is inspired by God. It's the Word of God.
I understand that that's what you think. And I understand that you are trying because you do feel like it's important to say that. And I really sincerely, if you think that there's somebody who would create a torture chamber for people forever, that person's a fucking monster. There's no way I would want to do anything for, with, or especially worshiping them. Respect yourself. Don't do it either.
That God is holy. And
no, you don't understand. Okay, no, I'm getting dragged in now too. Look at that. Look, he pulled me in.
Yeah, you're saying.
I'm not doing it.
Here, this is a quick aside. So real quick, because we're about to move to the next call. One, I really hope that you join the Reddit.
There's a mute button.
Yeah, but it's
gross.
For dramatic effect.
You're gross.
So join us on Reddit with a link to the documentary you were talking about because we can discuss that. And we can also discuss the prophecies in Daniel because certainly there are people that are better biblical scholars than I. But what I will say, wow, I couldn't go one episode without...
When we have our bingo cards, that's one of the squares.
It needs to be one of the squares.
It
is. Is it already?
Is.
Oh, they know me so well.
Actually, I think right is too.
Well, so...
Let me just ask you one question, Eric. Do you think a judge that allows crimes to slide, do you think he's a good judge or a corrupt judge?
I think...
If he just lets murderers go free, it's no big deal, you know?
A judge is a servant of the law. A mafia boss that allows slights against him to go uncorrected doesn't remain a mafia boss. And that's a much stronger analogy to the God you're describing, since the law that he creates is whatever he wants.
Jesus, fuck. You're on fire, bro.
Yep.
That was good. Clip that. No, try that again. Yeah.